All right, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Live with the Fantasy Sports Boss. It's been a while since I checked in with all you guys. That's why I wanted to do a live stream today. A lot of stuff going on, even though the fantasy football season is finished. Hopefully, you all wound up bringing home the league championship. No reason to go back and rehash all that craziness at the end of the season there with the DeMar Hamlin situation. The big, most important thing, of course, though, is that he returned to the stadium to witness the Bills ultimately lose to the Cincinnati Bengals in a rematch, which sets up a very interesting AFC-NFC championship pair of games. Of course, the Chiefs-Bengals is the highlight one. That's the game that everybody's interested in seeing. And the 49ers continue their winning ways. Still haven't lost with Brock Purdy, a quarterback, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And really, we're just one game away from me nailing it stone cold about the who I thought was going to the Super Bowl. I said about halfway through the season that I thought it was going to be San Francisco against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. I'm going to stand by that, even though Pat Mahomes is not 100% with his ankle injury. He's got a high ankle sprain. Met with the media today, said he's going to be okay. He's going to play in the game. So Mahomes looks like he's going to be ready to go. But yeah, I had said all along, San Francisco, Kansas City was going to be my Super Bowl pick. Let's wait to see what happens before I actually give you who I think is going to win. But I just still love this San Francisco 49ers team. I love everything that Brock Purdy is doing. Certainly everything on defense is clicking, and they are legit. Now, that being said, this Philadelphia Eagles team, and it really pains me to say this as a New York Giants fan, and God, that game was rough. And honestly, halfway through that first quarter, I looked over at my father who was watching the game with me, and I said, "This game's over. You might as well just go to sleep because the game's over." And it really was, for all intents and purposes. The Eagles were just clearly out of the league, out of the Giants league, and they showed it. Didn't even really sweat that game. And the Eagles are scary good. I mean, they really don't have a weakness. They now have a quarterback who's one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the entire NFL. They have a tremendous offensive line. Their defensive line and pass rush is the best in football, bar none. 4 guys with double-digit sacks. Their secondary, they might have the best pair of cornerbacks in the NFL in Darius Slay and James Bradbury. They may have the best pair of receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. A deep stable of running backs with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. This team has it all. And to add on top of that, they have 2 first-round picks in the 2023 NFL draft, which is just crazy. So the Eagles are set up for a really good run for sure. Justin Livingston's been a minute. I hope all is well. Things are well. I hope everything's good with you, Justin. Proud of Dable's Giants despite the Eagles slaughter fest. It was right. Yeah, listen, that honestly, again, we were spoiled. Myself as a Giants fan, especially, I was spoiled that they got to this point. They won a playoff game. They beat Minnesota. And again, I had said that from the very beginning too. Minnesota was a paper tiger all the way. I had said it for weeks. I was not buying anything on that team. And we saw why as the Giants really handed it to them. But it was a good season. It definitely was. But now Dable has raised the bar so much in his first year that now the fan base rather is going to expect even more improvement in year 2. They have to re-sign Daniel Jones, which they will. But the interesting thing, too, is that Joe Schoen, when he met with the media the other day, was a little coy when it came to Saquon Barkley. He didn't just come right out and say, yeah, we're going to bring him back. He did say that with Daniel Jones. Yes, he's going to be with the team next year, Daniel Jones. They're going to work out a contract. Makes too much sense not to happen. Jones really learned and developed under Brian Dable last year. But the Saquon Barkley situation is interesting. He's 25 years old. He's not young anymore for a running back, but he has missed so much time with injury that he's still a younger back at 25. Doesn't have the mileage, the high tread that an Alvin Kamara or Joe Mixon has when they reach that age juncture. But, I definitely am of the philosophy you don't want to pay the freight when it comes to running backs. Now, Christian McCaffrey, I believe, is getting $16 million a year. Will Barkley shoot for $14 million? I know the Giants offered him 12 plus, which he rejected. During the bye week for the Giants. He said he's not going to try to reset the running back market in terms of salary and costs. And I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how that turns out. But I can't imagine Saquon Barkley not returning to the Giants either. Of course, the Giants, they do need to add some receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster is a logical candidate. He's a free agent. I think he would fit in nicely on this team. That's a guy that I've always liked. I think Juju, he was disappointing overall this season, but he had his moments with Pat Mahomes. So I think that's somebody that they could bring in. Jacoby Myers is a free agent. That's another potential option for the Giants. They found something with Isaiah Hodgins. They could re-sign Darius Slayton, although I don't think they will do that. And listen, don't laugh. Evan Engram is a free agent. They could bring back Evan Engram. I mean, it's a different coaching staff. Why not? So these are all possible options for the Giants. And as far as the other game, Kansas City and Cincinnati, most people throughout the course of the season was all about, okay, it's either going to be Kansas City or Buffalo. And Cincinnati was overlooked. And this is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year and lost in the championship to the Rams. They have probably the most accurate quarterback in the entire NFL in Joe Burrow. I haven't seen a quarterback this accurate since Troy Aikman. And I pointed this out before. Jimmy Johnson, of all people, championship winner in college as a coach, NFL coach, he said the highest grade he has had on a quarterback in the last 15 years analyzing the draft has been Joe Burrow. So that's all I need to know when somebody like Jimmy Johnson comes out and says what he says about Joe Burrow and how good of a player he is. And, obviously I'm a big fan of his. I've said all along how I love the competitiveness of Burrow. He fights you to the whistle, no excuses. He'll throw interceptions and come right back out firing. The guy's got guts. He's tough. Joe Burrow is a top-tier quarterback, even though he doesn't maybe run as much as some of the other top guys. Big deal. And I think, and the Bengals have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs the last couple of times they played them. I think the Bengals have a really good chance to win it. Now, I know I gave you Kansas City against San Francisco in the Super Bowl, but I really think that the Cincinnati Bengals team is legit, and they are set up as well, just like the Eagles, to be good for a really, really long time. Rise above anything. How you doing? Yeah, the Bengals did dominate the Bills. The Bills were funny to me. It's something seemed to be missing with the Bills all season. They just didn't seem crisp. They need a running game, like you said. And there's going to be a lot of running backs available. And look, don't overlook the fact that the Bills could make a play for Bijan Robinson in the first round of the 2023 draft. That makes so much sense that it's almost got to happen. Bijan Robinson, Texas running back, one of the best running backs, probably the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley, is going to go in the first round. It just depends on who. Is it going to be, Green Bay? Is it going to be Tampa Bay? Carolina? Who knows? But the Bills, that's a team right there that could certainly use him. And then they don't have to, rely on Devin Singletary anymore, who's a nice player. But Bijan Robinson on Buffalo would be unbelievable. I mean, that would be the missing piece. But Josh Allen, he's settling into the Brett Favre phase of his career. And he basically is Brett Favre with wheels. He could run. Brett Favre couldn't run. But he's got that same gunslinger mentality, grip it and rip it. Whatever happens, happens. Throws a lot of interceptions. And it's, it was frustrating at times. How much was Allen also hurt with Brian Daboll departing to the Giants? That's something else that might have been overlooked to an extent. Was a lot of Allen's success the last couple of years because of Brian Daboll. We've seen Daniel Jones grow this season. Is that hurting Allen? Now, next season, in fantasy football terms, Josh Allen is still the slam dunk number one quarterback. There's no doubt about it. But you have Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow nipping at his heels. Joe Burrow, I think he ran for 200 plus yards, but he's not a zero in the running column. But I'm including him with these dual threat quarterbacks just because he's so damn good. He's that good. Yeah, they do need some more balance. The Buffalo Bills, I totally agree with you. It's just not working with Devin Singletary. He's a nice player. As far as James Cook, he can catch the football. He had some flashes, but he's not a bell cow back, and I never considered him one coming out of college. I just didn't see it. Now, a lot of other things going on. So I started putting out some fantasy baseball videos. Now, it's not going to be cluttered with fantasy baseball videos. I'm just adding some different dimensions to the channel. I'm not going to be going crazy with it like I did with fantasy football. This is primarily a football channel, the draft and fantasy football. But I'm going to still sprinkle in other things. I'm going to sprinkle in some fantasy baseball, NCAA tournament. When that comes up, I'm going to be doing videos and chats on the NCAA tournament once the bracket is revealed. I caught a lot of wind a couple of years ago because I nailed the Final Four and the final and the championship stone cold when Villanova knocked off Michigan. That got me a lot of attention because I had done a couple of podcasts leading up to that. So I kind of have a little bit of a following now when it comes to the NCAA tournament when I nailed all 4 Final Fours that year. So I'm going to be doing that again this year. Give you guys my Final Four with the formula that I have used the last couple of years to great success. And we have the NFL draft. I'm here also. Part of the reason why I'm doing the stream tonight is my 2023 NFL draft guide is now officially available for sale. I submitted it to Amazon, so Amazon should have it available on their site. My NFL draft guide probably within the next couple of hours. If it's not already available now, I'm going to check now to see if it is. So it's about 80 pages. So I have a paperback book. It's still in. All right. So it hasn't been officially, usually when you submit a book to Amazon, once it's all proofread and everything, it takes, 6 to 8 hours for them to finally post it on the site. So it's not posted yet. But the paperback copy is going to be available for $12.99 on Amazon. I'm also going to have a PDF version that I can email you directly for $7.99. So if you're interested in that, let me know about that as well. If you do want my PDF version of the draft guide, the NFL draft guide, I can email that to you directly. Just go to the donate tab on my channel's homepage and just put in a $7.99 donation, which will be your payment for the draft guide, and I'll email that to you within an hour after you do it. A lot of stuff happening. So the NFL draft guide, I did a feature on Will Levis, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud in terms of who I think is breaking it all down between the 3 quarterbacks, who I think is going to be who should be the top pick among those 3, because those 3 are generally considered the cream of the crop. This is a very strong draft class for quarterbacks. So those 3 guys I just named, plus Anthony Richardson, the Florida multidimensional, Justin Fields like Anthony Richardson, fantasy football alert. He's going to go in the top 10. There's every year you see quarterbacks make a push into the first round. Anthony Richardson is going to be that guy from Florida. So, and what's interesting about Richardson is he has, he looks like Justin Fields to me. He can run like the wind, just like Justin Fields, but at the same time, his accuracy is not great. The mechanics aren't there, but he's a hell of an athlete. And we saw Justin Fields last season put up monster fantasy football numbers on a weekly basis with nobody to throw to. Now, of course, took a lot of big hits. That offensive line really left him hanging out to dry, and Fields was a shell of his former self by the end of the season. In the fantasy football semis and the finals, he just wasn't the same guy. But Anthony Richardson is going to be a fantasy-friendly quarterback. Now, Will Levis of Kentucky, he could go anywhere from the number 1 overall pick, whether it's, the Indianapolis who comes up and trades up. Chicago, I don't think is going to hold on to that pick. The Chicago Bears have no reason to hold on to the number 1 pick. They should trade down, whether it's Carolina, whether it's Indianapolis, for that, whether it's Bryce Young, Will Levis, or CJ Stroud. I'm hearing more and more now that Will Levis might be the number 1 pick. But also the Indianapolis Colts, having gone through Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan, stationary quarterbacks, they might be more inclined to look at a Bryce Young, who is a hell of a talent for Alabama, but has a slight frame that could lead to injury. But he looks like Jalen Hurts. So there's a lot of moving parts with the draft, this season. And I wanted to do a mock draft for the first 10 picks at least, and I wanted to reveal that tonight. Now, of course, in my annual draft guide, I have the full first round, which is 31 picks this year, not 32, because Miami got docked for the Tom Brady tampering. So, that just keep in mind, there's only 31 picks in the first round. But I mocked out the whole first round in the NFL draft guide. So again, remember, if you're interested in the draft guide, click on the donation tab on my channel's homepage and just submit a payment for $7.99. I'm going to post that up there as a reminder. and then I'll email it to you directly, or just wait a couple of hours and go on Amazon. You could buy it for $12.99. It's a book form. It's not a magazine. About 80 pages and over 300 players that I fully analyzed and I watch and study the whole off season, or rather during the season. And I feel pretty good about a lot of the evaluations in the draft guide. So as far as Breece Hall, Rise, I'm good with Breece Hall, but it does take a while to maybe a full season for the explosion to come back. So Breece Hall may not be firing on all cylinders. Saquon Barkley, when he came back from that injury last year, he wasn't as explosive or as dominant as he was this year. Now that he was another year removed from that injury, so we might need to temper the expectations just a little bit on Breece Hall, but he is a world of a talent, no doubt about it. So anyway, getting back to the draft. So obviously the Bears have the number 1 pick. If they hold on to the pick, it's either going to be Will Anderson or it's going to be Jalen Carter. So the defensive tackle in Georgia, Jalen Carter, or Will Anderson, the edge rusher for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think Anderson's the number one pick in my book. Just a ferocious pass rusher, put up insane numbers rushing the passer with Alabama. So if the Bears hold on to that number 1 pick, I think Anderson is the guy. I think that the Indianapolis Colts are going to trade up into the top spot, and I think the Colts are going to take Bryce Young. That's my prediction. Not hearing anything specific on that. I just think that they're tired of the stationary quarterbacks a la Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan. I think he's going to be the guy for the Indianapolis Colts if they trade up. And then the Bears at number 3 would take Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. Now, the Texans at number 2, it's an interesting spot. The Texans took a lot of grief by beating the Colts the last week of the season in a meaningless game, which cost them the number 1 overall pick. But let's say the Indianapolis Colts come up and take Bryce Young. Well, C.J. Stroud is not a bad consolation prize. I really do like C.J. Stroud. I know Ohio State has a very ugly history of sending quarterbacks to the NFL. Perhaps Justin Fields will end that hex, although he's not a great thrower of the football. He's more of an athlete. So I do like C.J. Stroud. I think he's got good quickness, strong arm. He's fairly accurate. Listen, he played really well in a losing effort against Georgia in the semifinals of the college football playoffs. So if it is C.J. Stroud in the second pick for the Texans, I'm good with that. Will Levis, I don't like drafting quarterbacks who don't come from big-time schools and didn't put up big numbers. Both. Now, I know you give me Steve McNair or Alcorn State, whatever, but he put up numbers. Will Levis didn't really put up big numbers at Kentucky. And he's more of a projection player as opposed to, okay, we've seen him do this. We've seen him produce like this. We've seen him produce like Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. We haven't. So it's a complete crapshoot as to whether he could be that guy. They did that with Jay Cutler coming from Vanderbilt. Okay, God, he's got a great arm. He's got athleticism. This guy's gonna be awesome. Well, he never developed. He never showed it in college, and he never showed it in the NFL for all the gifts that Jay Cutler had. So I'm going C.J. Stroud number 2 if I'm the Texans, and then number 3, you have the Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals. I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to wind up taking, Jalen Carter or Will Levis. Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, whichever guy is there. And then, number 4, going on the premise that Indianapolis trades up into the top spot, I think that the Bears end up with Jalen Carter. So that first 4 picks, I think Indy's trading up. They're going to take Bryce Young, number 1. They want a more dynamic quarterback. So I think Bryce Young will be the number 1 pick. To the Indianapolis Colts. I really think they're going to trade up. There's no reason the Bears hold on to that pick. So then number 2, that leaves C.J. Stroud for the Texans. 3, Arizona would take Will Anderson. And 4, the Bears would go with Jalen Carter. And that brings up the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks have a couple of interesting options at their disposal. Do they go Will Levis? Geno Smith, do they not think Geno Smith is the answer? Or do they try to basically try to maximize this team when you have 2 solid receivers, at your disposal with, Lockett and Metcalf. So That's a tough call. We could see Will Levis be drafted here. Geno Smith, has him watch on the sidelines for a year or two. I think that is a definite landing spot for Will Levis, the Kentucky quarterback, at number 5 to Seattle. If they don't go the quarterback route, they need to fix that defense. The defense was 26th in the NFL last year. You have a couple of really ferocious pass rushers there. I like Myles Murphy from Clemson. So I think Myles Murphy would be a great pick if they go pass rush for Seattle at number 5. And if they don't go with Will Levis. And then number 6 is Detroit, another team that could take Will Levis because, yes, Jared Goff played great this past season, no doubt about it, but he's getting up there in age. And after this upcoming season, 2023, the Lions can get out of his contract without a big salary cap hit. So they could be in play for Levis. I think that they're going to try to fix that defense and go with a Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher of Texas A&M, they sense weakness. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers doesn't look like he's coming back. So that division is there for the taking. Minnesota, we saw they were a paper tiger, and Chicago's not ready. The Lions could win that division. They need to fix the defense, whether it's Brian Brees, the defensive tackle of Clemson, or Tyree Wilson. I like Tyree Wilson, number 6 there. All right, Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders could do a million different things. All right. In the draft guide, I believe I had Will Levis going to the Raiders here. They have Jarrett Stidham that can hold the fort for a year while Levis, learns on the fly. We know Josh McDaniels blew it with Tim Tebow when last time he took a quarterback in the first round when he was at the Denver Broncos. And he could be making another mistake with Levis. I'm not sold on Levis. I think, again, projecting him when he hasn't really put numbers up in college, a la Jay Cutler, is a dangerous game. And a lot of that has gone wrong. Many different examples of this going wrong in the past. So I could see them going Paris Johnson, offensive tackle, best tackle in the draft from Ohio State, if they believe in Stidham. But I have Levis going 7 to the Raiders. All right, so then the Atlanta Falcons. They will absolutely run to the podium and take Tyree Wilson, Texas Tech edge rusher, if he's there. I don't think he will be there. Could be Myles Murphy. He's an option for them there. Brian Brees, I think that also is one of those 3 I think the Falcons are going to take. They have Desmond Ridder. They're not going to be interested in a quarterback, although I don't think Desmond Ridder is anything. I don't believe in Desmond Ridder at all. I think the Falcons are fooling themselves on that one. And really just should, it would behoove them to try to remedy that situation. If they want to protect him, they could go with Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. That's an option there, but I think they're going to go with a defensive player. So Brian Brees, I think, will be available for them, and I think that's what the Falcons will wind up doing. Now, Carolina Panthers at number 9. They, too, could be moving up to take one of these quarterbacks. David Tepper is very aggressive owner. He wants to get this team back on track. It could be any one of these guys. They, too, along with Indianapolis, I believe, are the best bets to trade up into that first round at the top of the first round with Chicago and take whatever quarterback they want. If they don't move up, Anthony Richardson at number 9, the Florida quarterback, that would be my choice for the Carolina Panthers. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, because I only wanted to do 10. The Eagles have everything, so they can afford to be choosy. I think the Eagles are one of those teams that could be in on Bijan Robinson with their second first-round pick. With their first-round pick, I think they could maybe go Broderick Jones at offensive tackle or Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, any of those offensive tackles. I think they could really try to shore up that spot to further protect Jalen Hurts. I think that is something they absolutely could do. It's almost unfair that the Eagles have 2 first-round picks. I mean, it's just crazy. It really is that a team that's already so dominant has 2 first-round picks. So, kudos for them. Howie Roseman, he knows what he's doing clearly. And, I hate to say it. I can't stomach the thought of watching the Eagles win another Super Bowl as a Giants fan. It just makes me want to vomit. I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but it very well likely could. So, and again, like I said, a lot of things going on. The NFL draft is going to be a big priority over the next couple of months leading up to the April draft. The NFL draft guide is now available. Look for it on Amazon in a few hours, or like I said, I can send you the PDF version by dropping me the $7.99 payment on the PayPal link on the homepage of the channel. And then, of course, fantasy baseball. Not sure, how many fantasy baseball players there are, but I'll be doing some videos on that too, just to keep refresh the channel and get some more content out there. And of course, off-season fantasy football, like I've always been doing since the season ended. Going to continue to do that as well. And that draft guide will be coming out right after the NFL draft because I like to wait. Actually, let me rephrase that. So I'm going to put out 2 versions of the 2023 fantasy football draft guide. I'm going to do an early off-season edition, and then I'm going to do a post-draft edition. I used to do this with fantasy baseball. When I did fantasy baseball draft guides, I would do an early off-season edition that would come out in like December before Christmas, and then I would do a one probably like around February or March that was more updated through the Hot Stove League and all that other stuff. So I'm going to do that for football as well. So the first fantasy football draft guide will probably come out sometime at the end of February, and then I'll have another one after the NFL draft. So anyway, guys, just wanted to check in for a little bit. Thanks for joining me. Again, hit the subscribe and the like button and notification button. So if you're new, keep checking in for more videos, and I will chat with all of you soon. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great night.